My friends, my sweet babies, I've had some proud moments in my career so far, even back when I was screaming at the dashboard in my car while parked in a Walmart parking lot, which is where I did a lot of my shows back then for some reason. But even then, on occasion, there would be a milestone, which to me was significant. Since then, there have been other personal achievements, which meant a lot to me, but nothing in my career can come close to this, to the knowledge that my best-selling children's book, Johnny the Walrus, traumatized, terrified, and triggered, their own words, Amazon's employees. This is the pinnacle, the summit. It's all downhill from here, I'm afraid. So yesterday, my friend Libs of TikTok released the video from an Amazon internal meeting where employees discussed, complained about, and consoled each other over my books. Actually, my books, plural, not just Johnny the Walrus. The whole thing is so perfect, so on the nose, that you might suspect I scripted it and staged it all myself. It begins with one of the leaders of the meeting talking about the trauma that my book about walruses has caused. Let's listen.
It's been a very traumatic experience for transgender Amazonians and our transgender customers. What I don't want to come out of this is slamming the books team with a bunch of tickets. They're already aware of this. There are things in this space that are happening.
I take it back. I could not have scripted this because if I had, I never would have included the line transgender Amazonians. That would have seemed too absurd, too contrived. It's the kind of lunacy that only an authentic leftist in his natural environment could come up with. Transgender Amazonian sounds like some kind of mythical character. And, well, if the shoe fits. Also, note how he says that the books team is, quote, aware and, quote, there are things in this space that are happening. In other words, they are actively trying to suppress the book. That's what he's saying. Unsuccessfully, very unsuccessfully, as it turns out, because right now the book is just surging on the charts. It's in the top 5. It's been in the top 5 for a day, but they're trying. And it's the fact that they've been so unsuccessful and that I was able to figure out a way to navigate the system, a system designed to make sure that people like me fail, that makes them all the more enraged, as we'll see a little bit later on. For now, though, let's keep on listening to this clip.
Johnny the Walrus is a bit of a problematic book. Not a bit. It is not a bit of a problem. It's one hell of a problem. And I would preface this about what the book's about, but the customer we're going to listen to does a great job.
Need to keep a running list here of superlatives to add to the book cover when we do a second printing, or actually a third printing, because the first printing sold out in a day, if you hadn't heard. So he's already given me some good ones. Problematic, traumatic, and one hell of a problem. That last one's especially great. I want that on my tombstone when I die. One hell of a problem. The customer who called in to complain, one of many complaints we're told, so we're told this is kind of like a representative sample, but this customer certainly agrees with all those assessments about me and about the book and has a whole lot more to say about it. Let's listen.
I just checked your website and the book is still up on there. I hate to tell you, but it says that the book that it is shipped and sold from you, it is by Matt Walsh. It is teaching kids to bully transgenders. Yeah, to bully them into committing suicide, the LGBTQIA, especially transgenders. The story is about a kid who likes to pretend he's different things, and one day he pretends he's a walrus, and the community tells him he either has to be a human or he has to be a walrus, or they're going to kill him. He can't be both. He can't pretend anymore. Now, the author, Matt Walsh, just tweeted this yesterday morning at 8:04 a.m. I now have the #1 anti-LGBT book in the country. Any further criticism of me or my book is homophobic. Check mate. You are selling a manual to how to teach kids to bully other kids to commit suicide.
You know what? Honestly, I'm really mad because I have a sibling who is member of the LGBTQ, so I'm really mad as well right now.
Now, if I was inclined to call people Karens, I'd certainly say that this person fits the bill. I don't call people that because it's an anti-white racial slur. So instead, we'll just stick with calling her a shrill, hectoring wench. Maybe The View should give her a call. She'd be perfect, I think, as a co-host. She might actually be someone from The View. She also lies about the content of the book, claiming that I instruct kids to kill or at least bully transgenders. In this rather dark and gritty reimagining of my original story, she says that in my book, Johnny the Walrus, Johnny is told by the community that they'll kill him if he doesn't stop pretending to be a walrus. None of that actually happens in the book. I mean, it's been a little while since I wrote it. I admit I'll go back and check, but I don't remember including any lines in there about killing transgenders or the community telling Johnny that stop pretending to be a walrus or we'll kill you. That's not in there. In fact, nothing like that happens. And it makes me concerned for the woman's health. I know that you can actually get, and this is true, this is a medical fact, I think, that you can get like brain worms from exposure to too much cat litter. And so I'm concerned that this cat lady may be suffering from that condition. I mean, joke's on the worms, though, in that case, because they made it up to her head and looked around and found out the place was empty. She then says that I called my own book the #1 anti-LGBT book in the country. In fact, I didn't say that. I called it because it was and will always be, in my heart, the #1 LGBT book in the country, not anti-LGBT book. So she lied about that too, or hallucinated it. Meanwhile, the Amazon employee on the phone listens to all this and nods along in agreement. He's angry too, he says, by this book that the lady just made up. And keep in mind that Amazon itself, they are playing this complaint for the other employees and endorsing it. I mean, they said up front that they agree with this, that this is a good description of the book, while she just makes up a version of the book that doesn't exist. But we somehow have yet to make it to the best parts. Things get more emotional in a second video as the employees continue to lament the many ways in which I committed violence against their algorithms. Listen.
It's bad faith. It's basically abuse of Amazon systems, and they're intentionally, when I say they, I mean Matt Walsh and his publishing company and other people like him are taking advantage of Amazon and how the Amazon algorithms work to promote their particular brand of hate and harm on the community.
I have taken advantage of Amazon. Without Amazon's clear and affirmative consent, I have used and abused and manhandled its algorithms. This is the worst case of algorithmic abuse the world has ever seen. And we aren't done. I mean, if you're worried that so far they've cried over one of my trolling schemes but have neglected to mention my other ones, don't worry, because they do get around to that also.
The other part of this that is equally disturbing is Matt Walsh is getting ready to release, I believe, a book called What is a Woman? And there's also a documentary that comes with it. Jamie Lee shared some information with me about the movie, the documentary that's going along with it, but people are already talking about it. It was very much that style, tricking transgender people into participating, not understanding what they were participating in. And it's called What is a Woman? One man's journey to answer the question. I mean, let's just back up for a second and say, does a man even belong in this conversation? No, he doesn't. But guess what? It's not even on sale yet, and it's #1 in women's studies.
And #1 in the other categories that it's available in as well. This is chief mansplaining.
Chief mansplainer, another superlative. First of all, how do you know that I'm not a woman? I mean, what is a woman? In order to make that kind of criticism against what is a woman, you first need to be able to tell me what is a woman, but you can't, and that's exactly why the film and book exist, which you can find out more about when you go to whatisawoman.com. Second, this is no way to speak to or about a best-selling women's studies scholar, can I just say. Finally, we get to the grand finale, and we got to play this. This is the emotional crescendo of the story. When ultimately breaking under the psychological stress, the guy leading the meeting begins to weep. Watch this and don't laugh. Okay, this is serious stuff. So don't laugh, you heartless bullies. Watch.
Exploiting our systems, right? Our systems aren't, like, they're not set up to catch, they can, the self-publishing authors, they can categorize their books however they want. And so, yeah, I'm sorry. I want to preface this with, I also saw someone mention that this is really tough content. And if you're transgender, if you're gender non-binary, and this is super triggering, and this is super, I would understand if you needed to leave. This is for education for people who don't get it, who don't understand. And I would understand if this was a lot, but equally, I want folks to know that we're doing this because this really matters.
I understand. I also understand. I understand if my book, written on cardboard for preschoolers, about a boy who pretends to be a walrus, is too distressing and disturbing for you. I understand. I understand, in other words, if you're mentally ill. I understand and I sympathize. Well, actually, I don't really sympathize. And come to think of it, I don't really understand either, but I acknowledge it anyway. And I hope you get the counseling you need. Or I hope you banish yourself to an island in the Pacific somewhere. I'll take either option, really, though I prefer the latter because your cry-bully narcissism is a scourge, a plague, a cancer on this country. Now, I want to speak now, finally, directly to these employees at Amazon. You're obviously paying close attention to what I say and do, so I know you'll see this and hear it. And I want you to hear me when I say what needs to be said here. This will be perhaps the most important message that you ever hear in your life. It's something you should have been told years ago, but never were. And I'll tell you now. And here it is. It's not my job to cater to your feelings. I, in fact, do not care about your feelings. Well, I hope you enjoyed that clip from the Matt Walsh Show. If you did, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right down there so you can stay up to date on all of our future content.